topic tonight is going for a Buddhist pilgrimage. And of course, this picture was taken at Nalanda, and the monk is Venerable Dhammapala from Nalanda Mahavihara. I met him when he was there. But this picture makes him become taller than what he really is. Huh? Now I have to, okay. What is a pilgrimage? When we go on a pilgrimage, we are really going on a religious or spiritual journey to a sacred place, such as a shrine, a Buddhist, a special site, heritage site, or a temple. Yeah, and we know that Muslims will go over to Mecca, the Christians go to Bethlehem, and the Jews will go to the Temple of the Mount in Jerusalem. As for the Hindus, they will go to Varanasi. It is a holy city on the river Ganges, and that is, if they pass away, if they die, they would rather die in Varanasi, where the body could be cremated there. Where do the Buddhists go for their pilgrimage? Now, according to the Maha Parinibbana Sutta of the Digha Nikaya, Digha means long. These are collections of all the long discourses the Buddha gave. Buddhists are advised to go on a pilgrimage to 4 holy sites that actually lead to heavenly births. Now, the advice that the Buddha has given, and this comes from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. This is the Sutta number 16, and in the section 5.8, the Buddha said to Ananda, Ananda, there are 4 places, the sight of which should arouse emotion in the faithful. Which are they? So, number 1, here the Tathagata was born, so the place of the birth of the Buddha. Here the Tathagata attained supreme enlightenment, and that is the place of enlightenment. Here the Tathagata set in motion the wheel of Dhamma. Here the Tathagata attained Parinibbana. Ananda, the faithful monks and nuns, male and female lay followers, will visit those places. And anyone who die while making the pilgrimage to these shrines with a devout heart will, at the breaking up of the body after death, will be reborn in the heavenly world. So this is the advice that the Buddha gave. This sutra was given during the last 3 months of the Buddha's life. And when I lead a Buddhist pilgrimage, I normally would go through this some portions of the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, so that the participants would actually be able to understand in the last 3 months leading to the death of the Buddha what happened. And this sutta is very, very descriptive. So the Buddha actually encouraged us to at least visit the 4 holy sites: the place of birth, place of enlightenment, place of preaching the first sermon, and the passing away. Yeah? And the Buddha said that if you go to these places with faith, with a devout heart, when a person passes away, he might be reborn in the heavenly world. This is the map of pilgrimage. Many of these names you will come across when you go on a pilgrimage. Now, if you can see my cursor, you see, okay, Lumbini is up here, quite close to the Himalayan mountains. This is the land of the Sakyas on the father side. And this is the Koliyas on the mother side. And Kapilavastu is really the capital of the Sakyas. Then you hear about Savatthi. Savatthi is the capital of King Pashinadi of Kosala. So this is Kosala kingdom, actually close to Lumbini, very close. And then you have Kushinara of the Malas, yes. And Vaishali, this is the capital for the Lichavis. It is a republic, no king, republic. And this is Pataliputra, capital of Ashoka. But during the Buddha's time, it was called Patilagamma. And then River Ganges, these are the tributaries of River Ganges. Then you got Nalanda, you got Rajagaha, capital of King Bimbisara, and Bodh where the Buddha gained enlightenment. And moving along the river, this is Varanasi, the holy city, Benares, and Saranath, where the teaching, where the first sermon was preached, okay? And then if you go on to this side, you see Sankasya. Sankasya is a place of one of the 4 places of miracle, where the Buddha descended from Tavatimsa heaven. Yeah, so this is the map of India for pilgrimage. Now, these are the four holy sites. Lumbini is where the Buddha was born. Now, Lumbini is just across the Indian border, the Nepal-Indian border. And so during those days, when you don't have political boundaries, Lumbini is really part of the Indian subcontinent. Because if you say Lumbini is in India, it's very sensitive to the Nepalese. So we don't say that. But Lumbini is considered to be what we call the India subcontinent, where at that time you don't have Nepal as a country. And then he gained enlightenment in Buddhgaya. Saranath is where he turned the wheel of Dhamma, and Kushinara is where he passed into Parinibbana. So if you have done these four holy sites, well done. You have covered the holy sites mentioned by the Buddha. The question is that, are there some other sites that we can also visit? What do you think? Are there some other sites? Yes, there are some other sites. And these are considered to be the four places of miracles. Okay, what are the four places of miracles? One is what we call Sravasti, capital of King Prasenadi. This is where the Buddha performed twin miracle. You see, the Buddha will discourage monks to perform miracles. But in this case, in order to prove a point, the Buddha demonstrated that he can perform the twin miracles, of which fire and water came out from the pores of his body. And Sravasti is where the Buddha spent the most amount of his rain retreat at Jetavana Grove, as well as in the Pubarama. Yeah, spent about 24 of his rain retreat in Savatthi. Sankasya is another place of miracle. This is where the Buddha descended from Tavatimsa heaven to earth after spending 3 months teaching his mother the Abhidhamma. So this was when, on the seventh Vasa, he spent his rains retreat in the heavens and descended after 3 months. And then you have Rajgir, which is the capital of King Bimbisara. The miracle was that the Buddha subdued an angry elephant by the name of Nalagiri with the power of his metta, with his power of his loving kindness. But of course, the Buddha spent a lot of time also, especially the early part of his mission in Rajgir. So there are places that we can also visit when we go to Rajgir. And Nalanda is close by to Rajgir. And finally, Vaishali, where the Buddha received the offering of honey from a monkey, and Vaishali was the capital of the Lachivis. So these are all the 8 great places of pilgrimage. The 4 places, which include Lumbini, Buddhgaya, Saranath, and Kushinaga, coupled with the 4 sites of miracles, and these are the 8 great places in India. But also in the Buddhist pilgrimage, you might also visit other significant sites, such as Nalanda, Kapilavastu. Kapilavastu is not considered to be a holy site, but that was where the Buddha spent 29 years of, he grew up in Kapilavastu. And also Caesarea, where the Buddha taught the Kalama Sutta. Not at the Caesarea Sutta stupa, but to the people, the Kesaputta people. Yeah, and also Ramagram, which is a stupa at Devadaha, which is on the Buddha's mother side. Yeah, the Koliyas. And besides these holy places, there are also other places in India associated with Buddhism. For instance, Orissa. Orissa was where Buddhism has actually flourished for many centuries. And this was a place where King Ashoka laid down his weapon, laid down his sword to become a Buddhist in Orissa. You can visit here. There are still some very good monasteries to visit. Nagarjuna Konda, also the place where the famous teacher called Nagarjuna, he was the one who started the school, very influential in Mahayana Buddhism, the Madhyamika school. and also Amaravati, which is, this is in the center part of India on the east coast. And on the west coast, you have caves like Ajanta caves, you have Sanchi, you got Kosambi. So there are many places in India that you can visit besides the holy place, besides the 8 holy places. Now, as reference, I could recommend you 2 wonderful books. One is entitled Buddhist Pilgrimage, written by Brother Chan Kun San. He has led pilgrimage many, many times and has put together a very detailed book about the pilgrimage. And another book, A Middle Land, Middle Way, written by Venerable S. Dhammika, also an excellent book. Middle Land, Middle Way is downloadable from the internet. So if you go to the internet, you can download this book actually. So these are the 2 references that you can look at before going for the pilgrimage. But there are other places for pilgrimage by country as well. In China, for instance, you have the 4 sacred mountains, the Wutai San, San, Qinhua San, and Puto San. Yeah, each for the bodhisattvas. So Chinans have the mountains, sacred mountains for the bodhisattvas, and then you have Tibet, and I think you recognize this picture. This is called Potala Palace. This picture is not taken from any magazine. It was taken from the window of my hotel. So each time when we go over to Lhasa, we will choose this hotel because it's not a new hotel, it's an old hotel, but it gives us the best view of Potala. So the moment we get up, we see Potala until just when we lie on our bed to retire, we see Potala. And also in Tibet, you also have the Jokang Monastery and Mount Kailash. Besides that, there are many places in Tibet because it is where Buddhism is a living tradition. In the case of Indonesia, you have the huge stupa called Borobudur, Mendut, and Seoul, which are temples. In Japan, you have Kyoto, Nara, Shikoku pilgrimage, and this is something that I'm supposed to lead a group in November. But COVID-19 scuttled the plans. And also another one, Koyasan. Yes, we did this trip as well, where this Mount Ki, there are 117 shrines. You have to go up the mountains. This is for the Shingon school. Yeah, that is. So Japan have places for pilgrimage as well. Myanmar, of course, Buddhist tradition is there. Sri Dagon, Mahamuni Buddha Temple, Chaitio Pagoda, the pagoda that is on the hanging rock, Bagan, Sagain Hill, Mandalay Hill. In Nepal, Maya Devi Temple, well, this is in Lumbini. When you go to Lumbini, you visit this temple. Buddhanath and Shambhunath. These are both in the Kathmandu, and also Kapilavastu. Kapilavastu is close to Lumbini. Even in Pakistan, as you have gone through the history of Buddhism, you know that Pakistan had very many famous teachers, and Buddhism was flourishing there. And some of the most beautiful Buddha statues came from that part of the world. So you've got Takshila, which is an ancient university, even much older than Nalanda University. Yeah? Even during the Buddhist time, you have Takshila, and the Swat Valley, beautiful valley, where Buddhism prospered. Yes, and also for those of you from the Tibetan tradition will know Guru Rinpoche or Sama Pambava, yes, who also came from the Swat Valley. Sri Lanka is at Anuradhapura, the ancient capital of Sri Lanka. And Mihintale was where Venerable Mahinda converted the king. Polonnaruwa was another capital of Sri Lanka, or some beautiful sites to visit, as well as Kandy, where the holy tooth is. In South Korea, you got Bulbutsa and the three jewel temples. So we are also supposed to go to South Korea this year, but again, the plan was scuttled. In the case of Thailand, you got Wat Phra Wat Po, Wat Doi Suthep, Sukhothai, and Ayutthaya. Yeah, so many places for pilgrimage that we can go besides just going over to India. This is just to introduce to you the idea of going for pilgrimage. But of course, my talk, I'm just going to concentrate on the 8 holy places in India. All right. So, where are we going? Really, you are, let me turn on the picture again. You are going on a highly meritorious journey that will bring blessings to yourself and to your loved ones. Going on a pilgrimage. It's a very special trip. This is not a joy trip. It's not a sightseeing trip. It is not a vacation. It is a pilgrimage. And the pilgrimage is highly meritorious because this is where you connect with the Buddha and with the teachings. Because you will be walking in the Master's footsteps, covering places that are linked to the birth of the Buddha, to the enlightenment, to the teaching of the first sermon and the passing away. All right. And also, you will be visiting cities and sites where the Buddha spent much of his time teaching and in retreat. And in each of these places, it is possible to recount teachings that were taught at these places and what happened. Rich stories, many, many stories occurring at those spots. And this will bring up that sense of inspiration inside your heart, you know. And this sense of inspiration, the merits that you generate, will be such a strong merit that it remain with you for the rest of your life. And maybe this will be something will be your mind, maybe towards the last part of your life. All right. So very important for us to be able to make this trip at least once in our life. Now, what is the significance of a pilgrimage? To accumulate merits. When you visit these holy places, you accumulate merits. When you visit Lumbini, Budgaya, Saranath, and Kushinara. And this is also as an act of taking refuge in the Triple Gem. So when you visit these places, it is like you connecting, taking refuge in the Triple Gem. Refuge is a shelter. So you say that I'm going to the Triple Gem for shelter when you go on this pilgrimage. And then you deepen your connection, okay? And your connection to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Right? And it gives you a source of inspiration. Now, it is possible for you to connect with the Buddhist legacy. You will deepen your spiritual experience of the Buddhist teachings by retracing his footsteps. You know, sometimes when we read about the Buddha stories, sometimes we get our imaginations. So if you read a lot of stories from Britain and from or the United States, I do not know if you see a lot of Hollywood movie, you might think actually the Buddha was probably the setting is maybe like Britain or the United States. But no, when you go to India, then you actually understand the context of the Buddha's teaching. For instance, when the Buddha said in the Dhammapada, verse number 1, that for a person who performs evil, the suffering will follow him, like the wheel follows the ox that draws the cart. So you talk about an ox cart. So when you go to India, then you can understand. Oh, so this is like this. So then everything begins to get to be contextualized. Everything begins to make sense. They begin to fall in place. Then you can actually understand when the Buddha gives analogy. Why did he give those analogy? Because it's actually connected to India. So you have to go back to India to understand the context of the Buddha's teaching. The other thing is that the Buddha gained enlightenment as a human being. So when you go to his place of birth and to his enlightenment when he was 35, young and energetic, strong, and then you trace his life until he come to the age of 80, where he was sickly, where his body was giving him a lot of trouble, and eventually he had to pass away as well. So you also realize that the Buddha gained enlightenment as a human being. And it makes you realize that we too have the potential to be enlightened. Just like the Buddha could be enlightened, we too can be enlightened. And we get closer to Buddha by walking his footsteps, by rediscovering the roots of our Buddhist tradition. Yeah? So this is like going back to the roots, going back uh, to the source. During the pilgrimage, you will also be going to some very powerful places linked up with the Buddha's life. For instance, when you go to Bodh Gaya, under the Bodhi tree, there is what you call the diamond throne. It's called Vajrasana, the diamond throne. Within that kind of platform, which is called the diamond throne, that is where the Buddha sat and gain enlightenment. And apparently, it is believed in the Buddhist tradition that that place only could support an enlightened being. When the Buddha gained enlightenment, the weight was so heavy that only that spot could support the Buddha. And then just beside that will be the Maha temple. Okay, so that is a very powerful place, the diamond throne. Many years ago, when I went for my pilgrimage, they didn't have a fencing around the diamond throne, so we could actually go to the diamond throne, touch the diamond throne, put our head and do prayers. But I think these days, with the rise of um, terrorist activities and all that, sometimes people would like to destroy heritage sites of other religions. So this place is now being fenced up. So it is not possible for you to touch the diamond throne, but you can still see through the fence. Also going to the Bodhi tree, powerful place because this is where the Buddha gained enlightenment. Or you go to the first sermon, where the first sermon was taught, also very sacred and very powerful places. So going for a pilgrimage, you connect with this the Buddhist legacy, and you make this journey of faith and devotion, a journey of faith and devotion, not sightseeing, but it's a journey that is being led by your heart and by your head. So this is where the negative karmic tendencies that in the past that has been accumulated from life to life, that in the past have obscured the mind from seeing the truth. It helps you to purify your karmic tendencies. Of course, because of the karmic tendencies, we perform negative karma. The tendencies is actually the source of our karmic of our negative karma. So when you go to these places, it helps you to purify your negative. You go back to the source of all the negativities, and you help to purify that. As part of the journey, going to India is it's a different country. It's something that is completely different from what you experience if you actually grew up in Malaysia or you've gone to other countries for holidays. India is going to be really quite different. You are not going to get some of the comforts that you are used to getting here, but the advantage of this is that it helps you to see things from a broader perspective. Yeah, you can see things from a much broader perspective, and you also learn how to manage your emotions and your expectations, and this also will also help in your transformation. Okay, so a pilgrimage is not an ordinary travel, but it provides the conditions for the arising of wholesome mental states. Okay, so you have feeling of inspiration, you might also have aspiration. It also strengthens your faith, your saddha. It gives you a sense of urgency. Yes, because especially when you go to Kushinara, where you go to the site where the Buddha passed away, and you also feel, oh, I need to do something. I need to practice harder. And also, at each of these powerful places, you make your aspirations for your own spiritual awakening. You have got to plant the seeds, and make the connection to these powerful places for your own spiritual awakening. Maybe if your paramis are right, you might get it in this life. But if not, then maybe in the next life, maybe in some future lives. But you have to make the connection now, going to places where the Buddha was and making that kind of connection so that you will always remain on the path. Wherever you are, wherever you're born, somehow the conditions will be right for you to bring back to be close to Buddha Dhamma. Okay, so that is the power of linking to these wonderful places, these powerful places of these sacred sites. Now, the quality of the pilgrimage varies. They vary not only because of the travel arrangements. Of course, for the trips that I lead, I want to make sure that it is comfortable because many of the people that travel with me tends to be quite senior, so we do not want to get sick along the way. So but it is not only the travel arrangements that counts. We try our best to make good travel arrangements for everybody, but the quality of a pilgrimage actually depends on you. depends on the quality of your heart and mind. You are the one that can actually determine whether your pilgrimage gets a 5 star or your pilgrimage is only 3 star or 2 star. The quality of your heart and mind, right? Your faith and devotion, your frame of mind, the mindfulness, and how you dedicate yourself when you visit all the sacred places. That is the one that will determine the quality of your pilgrimage. Okay, this picture that you see was taken from the first week where the Buddha was, where the spot where you see the monk sitting. This is the place where the Buddha was gazing at the Bodhi tree, and you could see the Maha Bodhi temple. All right. Okay, a pilgrimage is also gives you an opportunity to cultivate virtue, because a pilgrimage is the practice of renunciation. This is where you have to give up your luxuries. You're so used to luxuries. You have to put up with poor food. We try to make the food okay for everybody. So those who are able to cook the food that we're used to, not so much spices, not so much salt, huh? And more like Chinese cooking, yeah. But still, sometimes it might not be the kind of food that you're used to, not the very best food that you enjoy in your houses. Along the way, you might be sick. These days, at least the people who travel with us do not really get a problem with their stomach. The early days, you would have diarrhea maybe a couple of times in your trip, and that is pretty bad, because when you're traveling on a trip, you do not want to get diarrhea. It is so inconvenient. Yeah. And also you'll be missing your family members. If you are tripped for 2 weeks, you'll be missing them for 2 weeks. And as you go out, you'll be harassed by vendors, and the sound and sights are very uh, what do you call it? It's very strong in India. The sound, everything was magnified. And I think the first 2 days also you're going to be a bit disorientated. You'll be wondering, oh, where am I? So a pilgrimage, when you get all these things, it also teaches you to renounce. It's a way of putting aside the kind of things that you're used to. Yeah, giving up all the nice things, and just the act of renounce. And it is very natural for people when they are faced with some of these sights and sounds and with the vendors and all that to have the feeling of aversion. Yeah. But you need to kind of like try to control your aversion. You need to control your pride, your greed, your hostility, your anger, because you'll be traveling with other people as well. And some of the people are people you meet for the first time. So sometimes the way they act, the way they speak, the way they behave at the dining table might actually upset you. But a pilgrimage is a time when you need to be able to cultivate your patience, your loving acceptance, your compassion, and your faith. Now, if everybody does that, then the traveling group of our pilgrimage will be very peaceful, very good. Yeah. And so this is not the time to complain about your roommate that was snoring last night, so you cannot sleep. But if you have trouble, then you need to let the organizers know about it as well. Okay, so maybe something can be done. Also, when you go on a pilgrimage, this is when you can perform dana, yeah, an opportunity for you to perform dana out of reverence and gratitude to the members of the sangha who takes care of the holy shrines. But you might also want to give to centers that are not so well supported, because some of these centers, especially in places of pilgrimage, they're supported very, very well by the devotees. You might want to support as well, but please don't forget the centers that are less well supported, because sometimes they also need assistance. And we make offerings as venerations, and we also seek for forgiveness for the transgression through our journey from life to life. And also in this life itself, we would have made many types of transgression against the Buddha, against the Dharma, against the Sangha. So at these powerful places, again, to ask for forgiveness from the Buddha, maybe through speech and action, we have done some transgression against Dharma and Sangha. So this will be the best place. Also for us to seek for blessings, to express our gratitude. People who have actually brought us the Buddha Dharma, our gratitude to our parents, who are our first teachers, to our Dharma teachers, and to our teachers leading back to the Buddha, expressing gratitude. Also an opportunity to share merits with guardian deities, with the teachers and all that. So this is a time for us to be able to make prayers, right? To make aspirations. Uh, don't forget to make an aspiration for your own spiritual growth and enlightenment. Make it at these powerful places. Don't forget. Don't forget. Don't spend a time with your camera taking pictures of everybody and forgetting to make your aspiration. Then you would have actually wasted a wonderful opportunity. Okay? And when you go on a pilgrimage, it is good for you to observe some precepts. Many Buddhists observe the 8 precepts. It's called the Uposatha Sila in order to maintain their purity at the 4 holy places. You can actually do that. 8 precepts. Um, at the minimal, observance of the 5 precepts is a must during this spiritual journey. Okay, but for the 8 precepts, it is good if you can do that. Some people who travel on a pilgrimage would choose to do the 8 precepts, but some others would, because of various reasons, might just want to observe their 5 precepts, and that is perfectly okay as well. But instead of the 8 precepts, you can also observe what we call the 10 Kamapata. The first one is avoidance of destroying life. Number 2, taking what is not given. Number 3, a wrong conduct in sensual pleasures. This is the wrong karma performed by the body. And then there are 4 connected with the speech: avoidance of false speech, slanderous speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. Okay. And then 3 connected with the mind: covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. So when you observe the 5 precepts, also observe the 10 Kamapata. Then you would have done well. Huh? And the when you go on a pilgrimage, it arouses a sense of urgency. Uh, you should use the pilgrimage as an opportunity to have awareness of the nature of impermanence and having a greater sense of urgency. Because you will recall the Buddha's last words when he was reclining under the 2 salad trees in Kushanara. His instruction to the monks, he says, indeed, because I declare this to you, it is the nature of all conditioned things to perish. Accomplish all your duties with mindfulness. Yeah? So these are the Buddha's parting words, that all conditioned things are subject to impermanence. Let us strive on with diligence and with mindfulness. So these holy places are associated with the Buddha, as well as the members of the great Arya Sangha, and all of them, without exception, would have to succumb to old age, to sickness and death. So we know that the sentient world does not remain constant, but is subject to the law of impermanence. And by so doing, we also reflect on ourselves alone. Because if you are young, you're not going to be young forever. And with the passing time, we will increasingly get older and older. Hmm? And taking the lesson from impermanence that the Buddha himself had to pass away, it gives us a sense of urgency to practice the Dhamma so that we might be able to realize Nibbana ourselves. So that's what a pilgrimage does for us, giving us the sense of urgency. And having the right mental attitude is important. When approaching the holy sites, we should show respect and decorum as if you are approaching a king. Because the king, the Buddha, after all, is the king of Dhamma, Dhamma. So when you go to the shrines, please make sure that you're dressed properly, that your decorum, that way you carry yourself, no chit-chatting, giggling, teasing each other. because this is not the way you carry yourself when you approach a king. You have to carry yourself respectfully with decorum. And be careful with the use of your handphone and cameras to take pictures. Because what happens is that when people are just taking pictures here and there, and they become very excited, they want a picture of themselves with their standing in front of all the shrines. Actually, in India, you're not supposed to stand with your back facing the Buddha. What you need to do is to turn at the side, right? Stand at the side so the Buddha is at the center so that you appear at the side. Don't block the Buddha, the Buddha image, okay? And sometimes this being carried away of taking too much pictures could actually lead to the lack of mindfulness and then later on to frivolous talk. And so this is not something that we should be doing when we go on a pilgrimage. And when we walk, we should walk mindfully and calmly with our senses subdued. And also spend some time at the sacred places to meditate, to reflect, and imbibe the blessed energy. And in the pilgrimage that I planned, we give some extra time, especially at Buddha, because some time for people to move around, find a spot that they like and to meditate. Because sometimes when pilgrimages are arranged, it was like touch and go, touch and go, touch and go, because people try to cover as many places as possible. And India is a big country, not like Malaysia. Malaysia is small. In India, it takes you hours to go from one place to the other. So because of that, people like to see as many things as possible, and it's really touch and go. And unfortunately, even when they go to Buddha Gaya, they might just go and touch and go, and then off they go somewhere, do some chanting, and off they go. It is very much nicer if you have a little bit more time, where you have a day maybe to spend, to sit around the shrine, to meditate, to do your own chanting, to do some reflection. And also another beautiful thing that we like to do as well is to spend a little bit more time in Rajgir, because there are many places that you can visit, and also at Lumbini, to spend 2 nights at Lumbini. So then it's not so rushed. Yeah. So this is a place where you can spend time at sacred places to meditate, to reflect, and to take in the blessed energy connected with these holy sites. And in terms of the great pilgrims of the past, we know that Emperor Ashoka embarked on his Dhamma Yatra. Dhamma Yatra means Dhamma expedition to the 8 shrines in 249 before Common Era. This occurred during his 20th year of reign. And in each of these places, he built stupas and raised sandstone pillars with an animal capital right on top of the pillars. That was an animal at all these sites. And we are really thankful for Emperor Ashoka, because Emperor Ashoka was about 200 years after the passing away of the Buddha. So it was like close enough, and Buddhism was prospering. So people were able to identify the actual places where these great events happened. And because he built a stupa and these pillars in order to mark the sites. Because we know that when Buddhism was gone in India for about 700 years, all the sites were forgotten. And then it was rediscovered again because Ashoka himself has actually planted all these stupas and pillars. And then it is easier for the archaeologists to be able to identify these holy places for us. Then there were succeeding Buddhist kings, queens, nobles, and other pilgrims to follow Ashoka's example. From China, we know that there are devout Buddhist monks like Fa Xian, Xuanzang, and Yi Jing, who had to face tremendous hardship, the perils along the journey, the exhaustion, traveling without food and water. And this journey attests to their indomitable spirit, to their courage, to their religious devotion and endurance. So we must take actually a leaf from these monks to see the kind of passion that they have, the religious devotion that they have to do the pilgrimage. Don't take things too easy, especially when things don't turn out so well. Don't complain too quickly. Just think what these monks had to go through. And besides these 3 famous monks, there were many pilgrims who died along the way. They never actually made it to India. They could have died along the Silk Road, in Taklamakan Desert when they ran out of water, or when they lost the path, just completely lost in the desert where they cannot see where they're going, and they just die there. And or some of them do not return back to their own country. They just remain in their adopted country and don't come back. Yeah? So these are the great pilgrims of the past. And now let me just very quickly talk about the decline of Buddhism in India so that it gives you some kind of context when you go on a pilgrimage yourself. Um, First is the attacks on Buddhism. The first major attack came from the Hephalites, or they are known as the White Huns, who invaded India in the 470 to 480 Common Era. This was before the Islam, much earlier before, and conquered the border provinces of Gandhara and Kashmir. So the White Huns came and conquered Gandhara and Kashmir. And the Hun king his name is Mihirakula. He has something against Buddhism. So whenever he saw Buddhist establishments, like monasteries, stupa, statues, he would completely destroy them. And also because the Buddhists have a practice of putting gold and wealth in the floors or in the walls or even in the statues. So they smash the statues in order to see if they could get some, pieces of gold or precious stones there. So this tradition actually brought some trouble to us as well. And then they also committed genocide on the monks and practitioners, and put an end to the Gupta regime. In 530 CE, Mihirakula was defeated by Yasodharaman of Mandsaur. Although Buddhism managed to recover from this vicious attack, it lost ground to Neo Brahminism. So Brahminism now started coming up in Gandhara, Kashmir, and Western Uttar Pradesh. Because there seems to be some kind of a tension between Brahminism and Buddhism. Because when Buddhism was very widespread, it was supported actually by the kings and all that. So sometimes there were other religious practitioners might not be too happy. And also sometimes it could be ideological, ideological differences, doctrinal differences. Later on in Magadha, West Bengal, Buddhism received the support from King Harsha Vardhana, 7th century. He also invited Reverend Swansang for a debate. And the Pala kings, 8th to the 12th century. Okay, so after the attack by the Hephalites, Buddhism seemed to recover, but this is around the Magadha and West Bengal area. And then during this period, after Buddhism recovered, they received the support of kings from the 7th century, and the viharas now become bigger. So now they're called Maha viharas. These are centers of learning and scholarship. So you have Mahavihara like Nalanda, Odantapuri, Vikramashila. These days we say universities, but those days they were not known as universities. They were called Mahavihara, Nalanda Mahavihara. Okay, and these 3 Mahaviharas were in Magadha, in some of them having as many as 10,000 students and 2,000 teaching staff, and some of the students coming from other countries, even coming from Sumatra. They were sponsored by kings, the wealthy, the merchants, and ordinary people. And over time, the monasteries, because of the sponsorship, became actually wealthy. And unfortunately, the monks also begin to relax their moral code. So you could see that Venerable I Ching actually noted that some of the monks actually became too relaxed, and they were being carried on sedan chairs and all that. So this is actually the start of the decline. The decline. But later on, when Nalanda was destroyed, you could see that in the Tibetan traditions, especially under the Gelugpa school, the school where the Dalai Lama was associated with, they also developed monasteries, monastery universities. For instance, the Ganden, then Drukpong, and Seri monasteries. So these are like university monasteries in order to develop scholarships as well, following the tradition of India. And then there is the second and the fatal blow to Buddhism. Mahayana studies prospered at the Mahaviharas, starting from the Gupta period, that is 300 to the 550 CE. Later, the Tantric Buddhism became popular during the Pala period, 9th to the 11th century. So this was where Nalanda itself became center of studies for for Mahayana as well as the Tantric Buddhism. India was being attacked by the Khaliji Turks, yeah, from Afghanistan. This is about the 12th century. And my goodness, these Turks came in and completely attacked and destroyed Nalanda, Vikramasila, as well as the Odantapuri Mahaviharas. And this was burned to the ground. The monks were killed. The libraries were burned to the ground. And so the members of the Sangha was completely removed. They were killed, and there was no one to lead the laity who were demoralized. So the laity converted to Islam, or they were absorbed in Jainism or Hinduism. And if they go into Hinduism, they became the outcast, the Dalits, the lowest caste. This is very, very sad for the Buddhists, what happened. And after that, Buddhism completely disappeared. The second blow was a fatal blow. And then we know that Buddhism disappeared in India for 7 centuries, from the 13th to the 19th centuries. Such as even the local people of Patna, Rajgir, Mathura, one stronghold of Buddhism, could not recognize Buddhist relics or the Buddha statues. And it is only when the British Raj came with scholars and explorers that they discovered fragments of the Ashokan scriptures. This was in 1750, but they could not decipher it. It took them quite a while. They could not read the Brahmi script of these inscriptions. And later on, there was somebody who was able to translate this. And also, there were some scholars who were looking at the Mahavamsa, which is a Pali chronicle of Sri Lanka. And of course, in Sri Lanka, Ashoka is an important figure. So they will be able to collaborate what they saw from these Ashoka inscriptions with the story that they're getting from Sri Lanka. And then everything began to connect again. And Sir Alexander Cunningham was really important. It was a gift for the Buddhists. He was India's first Director General of Archaeology, and he discovered and restored the archaeological sites in India based on the records of the Chinese pilgrims Faxian and Xuanzang. In India, nobody knew. All these places are completely gone. So we've got to depend on the records of the Chinese monks in order to rediscover the Buddhist sites. And so Cunningham restored the Buddhist sites. The person who reclaimed for the Buddhists these sites was, his name is Anagarika Dhammapala. He's from Sri Lanka, a Sinhalese, and he pioneered the Buddhist revival movement in India. Yeah? He was not born as a Buddhist. He was born as a Christian, but he got converted into Buddhism and became a very strong champion. Yeah. He read an article written by Sir Edwin Arnold, who wrote the poem Light of Asia, about the pitiful state of Buddha Gaya. And because of that, he visited Buddha Gaya. And Buddha Gaya at that time didn't even belong to the Buddhist land. Buddha Gaya, the land, belonged to the Mahans. So so he managed to raise funds from various parts of the world in order to buy back the piece of land where the Mahabodhi temple is sitting, to buy it back from the Buddhists. And there was a long series of court cases because the Mahans were very, very tough and didn't want to give in. So he managed to buy back that place for the Buddhists. And Anagarika Dhammapala founded the Mahabodhi Society in India. And he also regained the Bodh Gaya Mahabodhi temple. Can you imagine that the place where the Buddha was enlightened was no longer belonged to the Buddhists? So it was very sad. So he also restored Saranath, venue of the first sermon, which was reduced to a tiny village surrounded by a jungle. And they built a new vihara beside the deer pond and called it Mulaganda Kuti Vihara in 1931. He had a benefactor, a very wealthy lady from Hawaii. Her name is Mrs. Mary Elizabeth Mikahala Foster, a wife of a wealthy American banker in Honolulu. All right, now we will actually go to the actual sites. Now we have the holy sites. And for the holy sites, Brother Chiseng has put together a video. Brother Chiseng came with us for a pilgrimage last year. And he came back, he was inspired, and he put together this video that he will play. All right, so then after the video, I'll pick up from there.
Namo Buddhaya and a happy Wesak to all of you. Let me walk with you to the 4 sacred Buddhist sites and learn what are the lessons we can take away from this short trip. In the Maha Parinibbana Sutta, the Buddha highlighted there are 4 places a faithful devotee should visit and pay their reverence. And these 4 sacred sites today are located in the southern of Nepal, the state of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, in the northeast of India. They are the Lumbini Park, the birthplace of Prince Siddhartha Gautama. Second is the Bodhi tree in Buddha Gaya, or today named as Bodh Gaya, where he attained enlightenment. Then we have the Deer Park in Isipatana, today is called Sana, where the Buddha preached his first sermon to the 5 ascetic friends. Finally, we have Kushinara, where he passed away between the twin Sao tree. There are also other historical sites such as Rajagaha, Vesali, and Savatthi within the Ganges Valley that you may want to visit. In 623 BC, Prince Siddhartha Gautama was born in this garden of Lumbini. Let us now drone above the beautiful Lumbini garden. Here, you'll be able to see the Maya Devi temple, the Sakya tank, and the Asoka pillar. This is the Maya Devi temple facing the Asoka pillar, which marked the location where Prince Siddhartha was born. This can be testified by the inscription on the pillar erected by Emperor Asoka in 249 BC. Lumbini Garden was declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Archaeological Site in 1997. The Maya Devi temple was built to enclose the archaeological research. Here, you will see the marker stone indicating the actual birth site of Prince Siddhartha. It was customary for the queen to deliver her baby in her own parents' palace. On her way back, they stopped by the beautiful Lumbini garden. According to legend, the queen then gave birth to the Prince Siddhartha after she took her bath in this tank. The prince was named Siddhartha, which means wish fulfilled. Visiting Lumbini made me reflect, if we wish to have a noble birth, we must condition it by continuing doing good, avoiding evil, and purify our mind. The second site is a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. The name Bodhi tree is specially dedicated to the offspring of the original Bodhi tree where the Buddha attained his enlightenment. The diamond throne is situated between the Bodhi tree and the Maha Bodhi temple. This is the spot where the Bodhisattva got his enlightenment. On the eve of Vesak, sitting cross-legged, facing the east, the Bodhisattva made a powerful resolution not to rise from his seat unless he attained Buddhahood. That got me thinking, what should be a good spiritual aspiration for us tonight? By the grace of all the wholesome deeds accumulated in the past, let it be a condition for me to have opportunity to learn, practice, and realize the Dharma until I attain enlightenment. The Maha Bodhi temple was initially erected by Emperor Asoka in 258 BC. The Buddha image in this temple is of the Bhumi Sparsha Mudra, earth touching gesture. Datuk Sri Dr. Victor Wee will later share with us in detail the significance of this gesture. Soon after his enlightenment, the Buddha sought out his 5 old friends who were leading an ascetic life in Sanat Deer Park. He approached and informed them that he has found a way to the end of suffering. The Buddha then preached his first sermon, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which emphasized on the practice of the middle path. The original Dhammarajika Stupa was built by King Asoka to mark where the first sermon was expounded. This Dhammak Stupa is a memorial stupa without any relics, only to record the preaching of the second sermon, Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, to the 5 ascetic friends who will later all attain enlightenment. Next to these stupas is the ruin of Asoka Pillar. It marks the venue where the Buddha assembled his first 60 arahants and exhorted them to go and spread the Dharma in different directions. The lion capital of this pillar is now kept in the nearby Sanat Museum. This lion capital of Asoka is now the national emblems of India. It has 4 lions which face 4 different directions. This museum exhibits the artifacts recovered from the Sanat sacred site. At the end of this hall, you will find the image of the famous Sanat Buddha. This Dhammacakka Mudra, or the gesture of teaching, indicate the event when the Buddha gave his first sermon to the 5 ascetic friends. He also directed his disciples to go forth to propagate the Dharma for the benefit and happiness of many. Knowing how much the Buddha and his disciples have done to ensure we have the opportunity to learn and practice the Dharma, what role should we play to influence others to walk the right path? I've chosen tonight to share this little Dharma and hope you are inspired by it. Finally, we arrive at Kushinagar, the final resting place of the Lord Buddha. We have here the Maha Parinibbana temple, the Nibbana stupa, and a commemorative stupa to mark the location of the twin Sao tree. Inside the Maha Parinibbana temple lies a 1,500 years old declining Buddha, representing the passing away of the great teacher of gods and men. Behind the Nibbana Sutta is the commemorative stupa, marking the actual spot where the Buddha attained his Maha Parinibbana, or the final passing away. I am inspired by the Buddha's incredible long journey, life after life, perfecting himself, and finally became the fully enlightened one. And since our past wholesome karma has conditioned us to be born here, complete as a human being, with the ability to discern the teaching of the Buddha, we should make good use of our time and potential by diligently putting effort to perform meaningful deeds to create happiness in ourselves and the people around us. My aspiration to visit these 4 sacred sites was fulfilled. Personally, this 14 days pilgrimage to the land of the Buddha was marvelous and meaningful. At certain sites, I even shed my tears of joy as if I was there before. Well, you may now make your own aspiration, both for your own spiritual journey as well as the opportunity to physically step onto the path once left by the Buddha. Happy Vesak, and thank you for watching.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Chi Sing. That was the video that was done for Wesak 2020, which we did online. And he mentioned about me telling the significance of the ground touching posture of the Buddha. I wouldn't be able to cover that because that was a separate. That was really for the Wesak program. Let me just continue where we were. Yeah, continue with our lecture. Yeah. Okay, that was the holy sites which Brother Chi Sing has brought us through. I do not want to go through too much details, but these are actually found in your slides, in your notes. First, it's actually Lumbini, which is located at the border close to India. It is a World Heritage Site. Now, Lumbini itself, there is a master plan for Lumbini, and so the development of Lumbini follows this master plan. The master plan is by Kenzo Tange. He's a Japanese town planner, very famous Japanese town planner. And it is 3 miles by 1 mile, 1 mile wide, 3 miles long. And Maha Temple is in the sacred garden, the archaeological site. That's where you can see the Asukan pillar and the pond. And within this World Heritage Site, you have two districts. One is the Mahayana district, and then you got the Theravada monastic district. So the Mahayana temples are on one side, and the Theravada temples on one side, and there's a 1 kilometer canal right in the center. Right. The motivation for doing this master plan was when the first UN Secretary General, he was from Myanmar, Burma. He when he visited Lumbini, he actually cried because this whole place was completely, just completely like abandoned like that. So then, as the Secretary General, he managed to get all the other nations to support the restoration of Lumbini. Hmm? Then, close to Lumbini, when you go to Lumbini, you will also go to Kapilavastu, which is the kingdom of the Sakyas. And currently, there are two Kapilavastu, one in Nepal, the other one is in India. The one in Nepal is at Tilarakot, and you have stupas, you got monasteries, and you also have a fortified city as well. So many of us think that that is the actual place that the Siddhartha grew up. But the one in India is at Piprawa. Although it might sound very different, but actually they're actually close by. So the Indian part could also be Kapilavastu. That's where they found the relics of the Buddha. Okay, and nearby is Kudan, where you have the site of Nigroda Rama. It is a monastery built by King Suddhodana for the Buddha when he came back to Kapilavastu. And there also was where Rahula was ordained in the nearby, nearby that monastery. And there's also a site for the massacre of the Sakyans. Then, if you're in Lumbini, you should also visit Devadaha, the kingdom of the Koliyas, on the mother side. This is the capital of the Koliya Republic. And when the Buddha's body was cremated, his relics was divided into 8 portions. And one portion was given to the Koliyas, and they enshrined it in this stupa. It is believed that the stupa, the 1/8 of the Buddha's remains, remain intact here. Whereas for the 7 other places, King Ashoka has taken out the relics for him to implant these relics in all the stupas that he has built. Okay, so down here is the highest concentration of the Buddhist relics. And then now to the place of enlightenment that the video actually mentioned about this. This is in the state of Bihar. And of course, when you go over there, you will see the Bodhi tree, the Vajrasana, and Maha Bodhi temple with a beautiful Buddha statue there. And as far as the Buddha's enlightenment is concerned, the first week was spent at the Bodhi tree. Second week is the unblinking gaze shrine. If you remember the picture that I showed you just now of 3 monks seated on some kind of platform looking towards the Mahabodhi, that is a location for the shrine. The third week is the jewel promenade. This is where the Buddha walked back and forth. in order to prove to the devas that he was enlightened. Fourth week is the jewel house. This is where the Buddha reflected on dependent origination and on Abhidhamma. So his body radiated rainbow colors. Fifth week is at the Ajapala Banyan tree. Sixth week is Musalinda tree, where the Serpent King protected him from the storm. And seventh week is at the Rajayatana tree, where Tapusa and Balika came to make offering to the Buddha, yeah, so giving some food. So they are all within the vicinity of the Bodhi tree. So you can visit them, you can just walk around. And right across, you can see the Mahabodhi temple. It is called the Narajara River. This was the river where the Buddha bathed, yeah, and the Buddha crossed. You see, during the winter season, it's dry, so it is almost like a sandy bank. But during the rainy season, this is all filled with water, and this river can actually sometimes, uh, you know, uh, can pull away villages. Yeah? And here on this side of the river, you will have the Sujata Kuti in the village of Senani, where Sujata, who offered the milk rice to the Buddha, the Prak Bodhi or Dungashari, Dungawashari, oh my goodness, the spelling, where the Buddha spent 6 years practicing ascetic practices. And also there is the Uruvela forest where the Kashyapa brothers, the three brothers, which was converted to the Buddha after the first arranged retreat. Okay, so this one, when you go over there, then you might have a better recount of the story. And so you go to these places, you know what happened during the Buddha's time. Then the place of preaching the first sermon is Saranath. Some of the object of interest will be the Dhammarajika Stupa, where the first sermon was taught. The Dhammik Stupa was Anatta Kalana Sutta, Anatta Lakana Sutta, and this is the very recognizable monument of Saranath. And of course, you got various shrines and also the museum. And Kushinara, where the Buddha passed away. You can visit the Maha Parinibbana temple built by the Indian government. The Nirvana Stupa, where to record the site where the Buddha passed away, and also the Mata Core Shrine, where the Buddha took a rest before going to the resting place, and the Ramabha Stupa, where the Buddha was cremated. So these are all within the Kushinara vicinity. Now let me just cover very quickly to the places of miracles. Savatthi, Savatthi, current day called Sahid Mahid, capital of the kingdom of Kosala. And surely when you go here, you will visit the Jetavana Grove, where the Buddha spent 19 rainy seasons here. Yeah? And there's also the Ananda Bodhi tree. Then on the other side will be the Angulimala Stupa and the Anatta Pindika Stupa. Okay, and there's also a stupa where the Buddha performed the twin miracle and where he ascended to Tavatimsa heaven to preach to his mother. So Savatthi is, Jetavana Grove is really beautiful. Yeah, it has been restored, thankfully. And Sankasya, this is where the Buddha descended from heaven after spending his 7th range retreat for Tamatissa. And there's not very much remnants here. You have a broken Ashokan pillar with an elephant capital and a little stupa mount to mark the spot where the Buddha came down. And there is a temple, Hindu temple, that is built on this stupa. And Rajgir, is a capital for King Bimbisara, where the Buddha tamed the drunken elephant. This is 70 kilometers northeast of Bodh Gaya, in many places for you to visit. So it's actually a place that you should spend at least 2 nights. Veluvana is a bamboo grove, the gift by King Bimbisara to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. And then the Vulture's Peak, where many sutras were preached, especially from the Sanskrit tradition. And then you have Pihali's house, where it is said to be the residence of Mahakashyapa, the Satapani caves, the site for the first Buddhist council, Bimbisara jail, and Jivika mango garden. Then the nearby Rashgir will be the Nalanda Mahavihara, the ruins of the Nalanda Mahavihara. Only about 1/10 of the university of the Mahavihara has been excavated. The others are all beneath the villages. And this stupa is also dedicated to Sariputta, which was born nearby, in a nearby village. And also, if you visit this Nalanda, you should also go to the Xuanchang Memorial, because Xuanchang have written very well about Nalanda. He studied here for 5 years, and then also came back after that to Nalanda, after going around in India. And Vaishali, where a monkey offered honey to the Buddha, that's capital of the Lichavis. And the Buddha has visited Vaishali several times, including chanting the Ratana Sutta. And he was here for the 5th as well as the 44th rains retreat. And some of the objects of interest will be the relic stupa of the Lichavis, Ashoka stupa, Ashoka pillar, and the monkey tank here in this picture, and also a nun's monastery. And along the way, you will see the Kesaria stupa, where the Lichavis parted with the Buddha. This is where, when the Lichavis knew that the Buddha was passing away, they followed the Buddha, but the Buddha asked them to go back, and they didn't actually, they keep following the Buddha. So the Buddha created an illusion of a deep chasm, so they could not follow the Buddha. And the Buddha has also given them his alms bowl, and they built a memorial stupa here. And this really became the design for Borobudur, the Kesaria. It used to be the tallest stupa. It used to be 150 feet high, whereas Borobudur is only 138 feet tall. But the stupa has fallen because of earthquake. Okay, now very quickly, if you're going on a pilgrimage, very quickly, this is a kind of the itinerary that I use. It's a 14-day. We like to give a quality tour for people spending time in Bodh Gaya. You see Bodh Gaya, one night, 2 nights, 3 nights. Okay, and also Rashgir 2 nights, Lumbini 2 nights. So that we can but this is not the only itinerary that you can have. There are many other itineraries that your travel agent could come up with. So this is the one that I use. And then maybe just some brief notes on traveling in India during this time. We normally like to travel during the cold season. Actually, the Sri Lankans like to go, I think, during the rainy season. So during this time, you don't see many Sri Lankans. During the day, the temperature is quite pleasant, 20, 25. Sometimes can go up to 30. And you're advised to bring some warm clothing, a pair of slippers, or thick socks to wear in the temple, because then easy for you to change. You leave your shoes inside the bus and just walk barefooted. Dress code, maintain your modesty, because there are many monks and nuns and pilgrims, and you can use loose fitting clothes, which is for comfort. And you're required to remove your footwear in temples. It's quite safe because there are people to jaga, to look after your shoes. And you bring a mat and cushion for sitting meditation, and bring a shawl to cover yourself. Sometimes there are mosquitoes and insects. And also bring a torch, because some places could be dark. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. So I hope that from this presentation you will have the inspiration to do a pilgrimage if not gone on a pilgrimage before. And so we have also given you some advice on what to do when you go for a pilgrimage.